if it weren't for the United States leadership in the war on drugs, we wouldn't be seeing the war on drugs.
This war on drugs. The term was coined by Richard Nixon in 1971.
We've been fighting the war on drugs for 40 years, and cocaine, marijuana, I mean, all the drugs that you can imagine, are they less available now than they were then? No.
It's demand that is really driving the whole thing.
The biggest harm that comes from the war on drugs is criminalizing people who aren't criminals.
What we're doing now is not working. It's costing and it's unsustainable.
Despite increased efforts to control the illegal drug industry, the market continues to flourish.
Que mientras haya consumo, mientras haya demanda, va a haber comercio. La gente la va a seguir cultivando.
As long as there is demand and consumption for this drug and this plant, people will continue to grow it because there's a market.
If you grow coca, which is an ingredient in cocaine, then everything is basically laid out. Getting the product to market is all laid out, and you're paid, and it's better paying, it's more reliable, it's more risky. But people in that situation who have no state support, who are structurally poor, have so few options that they're the ones who are more likely to grow coca.
It is so entangled with the economy in Mexico that right now, if we take away the money that is generated from drugs, people will probably, will move towards poverty.
Porque en sí pongamos el campesino como la saca y ahí hay que hacer mucho énfasis ahí. Al campesino no es que le guste sembrar coca, es que no tiene otras alternativas económicas.
I want to emphasize that it's not that the farmer it's so important to them to grow coca, it's that there are no alternatives.
In Columbus, Georgia, on the grounds of Fort Benning, the School of the Americas, also known as WINSEC, provides a cover for government interests to hide behind.
In Latin America, the people that we work with in Colombia, they know about this school, and they know about this school not because the people that go back are helping to improve human rights. It's because the people that go back are helping to carry out human rights abuses. They're responsible for some of the worst human rights abuses there.
A lot of the courses that are being taught in the successor to the School of the Americas, WINSEC, are focused on the drug war.
You see in this transition from SOA to WINSEC that there's an awareness that something is wrong, or there's a concern about the public image, that we are able to control the training and the mindset of people who carry out incredibly violent acts, and yet the culpability remains somewhere else, because the School of the Americas provides this umbrella, this rubric for carrying out interests that we don't want to directly claim ourselves.
What's really happening there are human rights abuses. These soldiers that are going down that have been trained, they're not going after drug traffickers, they're going after small farmers. The UN estimates there's 80,000 small farmers that grow coca there.
Y de ahí para adelante los que la transforman y le dan el uso que se le dé ya se sale de las manos de los campesinos.
And those who transform the coca leaf and make it into cocaine, that's something that's out of the hands of campesinos, of farmers. That's something separate from us.
The war on drugs focuses solely on supply, yet does nothing to decrease demand.
The war on drugs, this fumigation program in Colombia, not only is it not solving the problem, it's not reducing coca production, it's causing human rights abuses, it's maybe poisoning people. We have the military aid that we've sent to Colombia to try to take down the cartels there. Those cartels, when they go down, they just popped up in Mexico.
Within the past 5 years maybe, the violence has increased in states where it used to not be affected by drug violence.
They have fumigated these farmers. They say they're fumigating the coca crops and they're planting Colombia, but most of the times they end up fumigating their food crops, their plátano, their yuca, and after they fumigate them, these campesinos are left with nothing to eat, so they end up having to displace.
Sigue habiendo coca y fuera de eso los cultivos se quitan en un lado, pero la gente se va a sembrarlos a otra parte, a tumbar más montaña para volver a sembrar.
There is still coca in the region, and what's more is that when they fumigate in one area, the people just go and grow it in another area, so it's resulting in the deforestation of the region.
We've worked since 2000 in Colombia, and that year the U.S. provided a $1.3 billion aid package to Colombia in the name of the war on drugs to try to reduce coca production, the raw material for cocaine, by 50%. Through that assistance program, there was 80% of it was military assistance, 20% of it socioeconomic assistance.
Y allí también habían, pues lo que sabemos es que los pilotos de las naves eran de los Estados Unidos.
And what we know is that those who were flying those planes and operating the fumigations were U.S. military personnel.
The war on drugs is actually a pretext to what people here at the School of Americas have often said about the militarization of countries, the assassinations of human rights leaders and workers that are demanding their rights in Colombia and around the world. So this military aid coming from the United States going to Colombia is going into the military to actually fight counterinsurgency war.
The war on drugs attempts to eliminate production and consumption, but there are many other benefactors attempting to gain power and control in Central and South America.
Since the Cold War, the drug war has served as a rationale for U.S. military engagement all over Latin America, as well as other countries like Afghanistan and even Pakistan. And so it has actually supported militaries that are systematically violating human rights in Colombia and Mexico and Peru and other countries. And it's taking resources away from what countries and the populations in Latin America need, as well as what we need in order to deal with our own issues of addiction.
It's a multi-billion-dollar a year industry already, but it's underground, so all the money is going to criminals and drug cartels.
There was the report in the New York Times that the Arms, Tobacco and Firearms Bureau also had allowed money to be laundered with similar hopes that it would lead to people in more powerful positions in the cartel. All of these, I think, examples are more fodder for the people who are suffering most in Mexico from this gun violence to be distrustful of the United States. Just contributes to a way that the United States has shifted offshore, so to speak, some of the violence that results from the drug trade here, the drug market.
Entonces, lo que nosotros pensamos es que en realidad no están combatiendo la coca como un problema, están más bien cuidando los intereses de los grandes empresarios que piensan invertir en Colombia.
So we know that Plan Colombia is not actually dealing with coca as a problem, but instead watching out for the interests of big businessmen in Colombia.
Multinational corporations have benefited the most. If we say there was 5 to 6 million displaced people in Colombia, depending on what statistic you use, and that's 5. Those are campesinos that once had land in the countryside that no longer live there. And who now has that land? Well, multinational corporations.
The United States is building military bases all along the coasts of Central America, both along the Caribbean and along the Pacific side. It's supporting the training of military police and police in Mexico that are systematically abusing human rights. And in Colombia, after increases of military aid that were based on the drug war, based on getting rid of narcotics, the number of extrajudicial killings by Colombian army units actually increased on average. And in addition, it hasn't affected the availability of narcotics in this country.
Is the war on drugs a success?
For a long time, people have been making the argument about why the war on drugs is not functioning, but the debate in the United States about drug policy is not a rational debate. It's not based on evidence or any kind of rational discussion of the issues. It's much more an emotion-driven debate about drugs being bad, and therefore we have to go after them.
Prohibition fails to realize that people are going to use a substance no matter what that substance is, and Prohibition kind of ignores the fact that you can't really control what people do or what people put into their bodies.
In the United States, the drug war has taken the form of mass imprisonment. More emphasis on drug treatment, however, could help limit the demand that is fueling the war on drugs.
We've come through about 2 or 3 decades of this sort of addiction to incarceration, and everything was addressed through incarceration.
One of the reasons why the war on drugs has resulted in such a boom in the prison population in this country is because of mandatory minimum sentences, which many states started to pass and the federal government passed too, starting about the 1980s. And those mandatory minimums took discretion from judges away.
It's pretty well established that prison and incarceration does not treat drug addiction, that if people have a drug addiction problem, they can go to prison for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, they get out, they're still going to have a drug addiction problem.
The RAND Corporation, which is a very conservative think tank, it's contracted by the Department of Defense regulator who studies for them. In 1994, they were contracted to do a study called Controlling Cocaine, about how to reduce cocaine consumption in the United States by just 1%. And they said that it's 23 times more cost effective to spend that money here at home doing domestic drug treatment and education programs than it is to try to stopping the cocaine in source countries.
Instead of punishing people for possessing drugs, it makes a lot more sense to me to have drug treatment, effective drug treatment programs widely available to anyone who wants to partake in them. But unfortunately, since the public has a very sort of tough on crime attitude, then things like treatment are not usually well supported.
People from across Latin America, the former presidents of Mexico, of Brazil, of Colombia, the current president of Colombia, Juan Manuel Santos, Kofi Annan, the former head of the UN, they've all called for a discussion about other ways of dealing with our drug problems.